Facebook famously determined that if a new member invited 10 friends within 14 days, they were hooked for life. So they focused religiously on driving the user experience to this key metric. If you apply this product-based approach to B2B sales, then you can identify those users that are ready to talk. And this method is known as the Product Qualified Lead, or PQL. So if you sell in a freemium, open source, or trial model, then the PQL method is critical to give your sales team visibility into who is ready to talk. So talk to your data team, or better yet, partner with Whaler's team of data scientists to develop a PQL model tailored specifically for your business. You'll be empowered by knowing exactly when a user is ready to convert. To see specific examples, go to getwhaler.com/Andy. That's GETWHALR.com/Andy. And as a bonus, if you sign up to learn more about Whaler and PQLs, then Whaler will send you their optimized 2-page master services contract that you can leverage for your own business free of charge. It's time to accelerate. Hi, this is Andy. Welcome to another edition of Frontline Friday with my regular and very special guest, Bridget Gleason. Now, before we get to the show, Bridget and I have a favor to ask of you. We'd really appreciate it if you took time right now to leave a review for this show on iTunes. And while you're there, click the button, subscribe to Accelerate. Make sure you get Frontline Friday automatically each week. Also, we need to hear from you. More specifically, we need your sales questions. What can we answer for you? What challenges do you have that we can help you with? So go to accelerate.fm/frontline and enter your question there. Each month, we're going to select one listener's question to be the question of the month. And the winner will receive a $50 Amazon gift card. So remember, go to accelerate.fm/frontline to give us your question and maybe win $50. So Bridget, or is it Captain Fantastic?
I keep wondering when I'm going to get rid of the very special. How many of these have we done?
96.
Okay, good.
You're still special.
Like
that makes you special.
I know. And I really like that. And Captain Fantastic and all of that. Each time you come on, Andy, with all the enthusiasm, I think, oh God, maybe today's the day that he'll forget the special or the Captain Fantastic, but it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, you want me to dispense with those?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't. I live in fear of you dispensing with it. This is my ego boost.
Okay.
My Friday ego boost.
All right. Well, I guess I could resort to the thesaurus and put in special and get a list of words I can start using in place of, switch things up a little bit.
Okay, let's start a Google Doc for that.
Okay, yeah, we'll put that out there with our other Google Doc that we use. So we actually have a special guest with us today, another special guest. Not that you're not special, Bridget, but another special guest.
See, I live in terror, and it's starting to happen.
I didn't want you to feel all caps. I didn't want you. Yeah, that's right. I didn't want you to feel diminished. So, but anyway, joining us today on the show is, and he's actually was on Accelerate. I was on Accelerate not that long ago. Is Mitch Morando, CEO and founder of Whaler. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here. FLF.
Yeah, Frontline Fridays, and proud to welcome Whaler to the Accelerate family as the exclusive sponsor of Frontline Fridays. So, Mitch, thank you very much for helping us put the show on the air.
Absolutely, excited to participate, and excited to thanks for letting me join the call today.
Well, no, our pleasure. So we wanted to introduce you to the audience. I mean, those, I said, people have heard you on Accelerate, but if not, why don't you tell us just a bit about Whaler and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. So Whaler, we're a SaaS platform and really built around this concept of a PQL. So it stands for Product Qualified Lead. So many folks in your audience may be familiar with MQLs, Marketing Qualified Leads, Sales Qualified Leads, but we look at the user journey quite differently in that product usage, what users or groups of users are doing the product actually is what I've found to be the biggest indicator as far as understanding when and how a sales team should engage. So that's really the principle that we're trying to teach, not only at a high level, just evangelize PQLs, but also in implementation and what our platform does.
So in short, so that if you're, let's say you are a SaaS company and you have a freemium model or a trial model of some sort of paid trial or whatever, that what you're going to do is you're going to analyze how those users are going through the product, how they're using it, engaging with it, and that's going to generate these product qualified leads based on some usage pattern.
Exactly. Yep. Usage patterns and your classic firmographic data. So
very interesting.
I think that's great. We just started looking at, I think we've always looked at product data and user behavior in the platform, but it's only recently that I've heard this term PQL, and I think it's so spot on.
Yeah, it's very powerful, and I mentioned this when we did the interview a few weeks ago. Conceptually, I sort of learned this early in my career from game developers, and how they use player telemetry in order to understand how to build, immersive video games. And so I started applying that to my sales teams, even as early as, before SaaS, when we had on-prem software. I went to the engineering team and I said, can you just, fire some call home data, anything when they, the engineer wires up, plugs in our engine and wires up some collision detection or something, fire back an event. And lo and behold, as soon as we got this event back, we'd make a serendipitously timed phone call and make the prioritization and the effectiveness of that outreach significantly better. So sort of just kept that approach going.
So is there some profile you can give us of the type of company that's actually using this most aggressively right now?
Yeah, our ideal customer profile at the moment are developer first. Right, that's where the problem is the biggest. Either open source or a lot of these freemium products where engineers kind of pick it up. Because if you think of one audience, of course, nobody wants to talk to sales, right? At the end of the day, not even salespeople.
What?
But engineers especially, right? It's like trying to get an engineer to communicate with you at all is incredibly difficult. So that's where we see the problem the biggest, and that's kind of where we focused our efforts. DevOps, sort of developer tools that use that, and then but have a sales team, because again, the sales team has to approach when there actually is an enterprise opportunity, and the enterprise use case is obviously very different. You have a different value proposition, but those are sort of the models that we focus on today.
Yeah, well, I know this software company based out of Tel Aviv. That sounds like a great prospect.
I know, definitely. And I was going to ask you, Mitch, do your sales reps, or do you advise sales reps to interact and communicate differently with the developer community or an engineer based on the MQL or PQL? Or are they using the same types of communication? They don't. How do you think about it after they pick up a PQL and know that the engineer or whomever has engaged?
Yes, it's a good question, because the approach or the tactics that you use are going to be very different, right? So what we sort of recommend as the best practices, you're using the engineer's activity or group activity, a couple of engineers doing certain events X, Y, and Z, and use that as, okay, if you have let's say the concept of a pre-sales engineer and an engineering person, they can actually reach out at an engineer to engineer level and start to communicate, as far as, here's the documentation or here's the things technically I can help you with. But from a salesperson's perspective, it's the dodge low and punch high, because there's a project obviously spinning up or something. And now I want the sales team to start the conversation at the VP level, right, and work their way down. So it's sort of this, you're using the activity signal as an indicator of when things may be a better time to kind of coordinate the tag team effort between, let's say, your engineering resource and the salesperson.
So then you advocate sort of an engineer to engineer communication. Mm-hmm. And do you find that that's typically, is it email? Is it text? Is it Skype? Is it LinkedIn? Where are those conversations happening? Is it phone?
I know where it's not happening. It's definitely not happening on the phone. It's not happening on LinkedIn. And that's where, again, I'll sort of focus on these developer first kind of use case. But typically, and if you don't have an engineering resource, it's still your salespeople have to put on this really like engineering persona.
Correct. Right.
where it's coming across as like you might even have to doing some technical speak in even if you're not an engineer, still picking up the language because it's a different animal that you're trying to communicate with. So really the communication paths that I've seen, email is still very effective, but it's the messaging, right? Like an engineer can, if you're not an engineer, like a million miles away, based on just the language that you use. But I have seen email still very effective. Things like GitHub, like hugely effective, right? As far as how people communicate on GitHub repos, and interesting enough, chat, and the one that I've seen that we've seen teams experiment with. You mentioned is SMS because, and I think the power of text is interesting because it's asynchronous. And I think that's part of why engineers. And I even think about my own experience. I just bought a car primarily using text because I didn't want to talk to a salesperson. So I think I had 98% of the conversation over text. And I was like, oh, wow, this is actually great. It's asynchronous.
That's great.
But so I'd encourage you to like test SMS. And, I think the engineers just, you're in control, right? And it gives you a chance to ease into the conversation as opposed to having a salesperson try and, just talk to you to death.
Yeah, it's interesting. Here we do use a lot of text. Our sales people will text. And also with some companies, we open up private Slack channels.
Oh, yeah.
And that is also super effective. And we just put an engineer or sales engineer in the channel, and they're the ones that are communicating. But the sales reps obviously can see all the communication. Sometimes there are direct messages that go back and forth, but that's been super, super effective for us as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And I'm sure you may have experimented with this in the past as well, but I've seen some very clever teams also change the titles of their salespeople, and they may have more technical degrees, but they're coming across as like a customer success engineer, right? But they're quota carrying. But again, it is all about, you're speaking to this very different audience, right? So I think the engineers that are doing the work are very different. Have a very different personality and understanding than the VPs of engineering or the directors that are really ready to have the enterprise conversation.
Well,
and you're preaching the choir.
Well, and your point though is that you made earlier about an engineer being able to smell, a mile away if the person on the other end or that has written the email is not really an engineer technical. So in terms of the titles, I've been a little bit careful around that because, trust is also a really big thing. And I don't want to put engineer in the title and then they open it up and see, saying an engineer, this is a salesperson so with the more technical sales reps, it's okay. Or with our sales engineers, it's obviously fine because they are quite technical, but yeah. I've definitely thought about that as a strategy, but like you said, all they need to do is open their mouths and they've blown their cover.
Right. Yes, you have to be, of course, you hit the nail on the head. Like it's everything in sales is built around trust, right? So you have to use that, in the right context. But if I do have a salesperson that is very comfortable talking, to a good level of technical depth, I'll be like, hey, go ahead and change. Yeah, you actually should change your title. Maybe you may find that it's kind of like in sales where you might not be an account executive anymore. It's like business development because it's a little bit softer, right?
Right.
But
customer experience engineer.
Yeah, there you go. But there's certainly ways that you can make it a little bit easier for that that persona on the other side to identify with you, right, and begin the conversation.
Very cool. So, Mitch, are you ready for some questions? I've got some questions so people can get a chance to know you a little bit better.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So, first question is, what music's on your playlist right now? Oh,
my playlist? There's usually only one thing. It's just Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam. Oh, Pearl Jam.
Now, there's a little context I have to for the audience especially because,
give us the story.
Of course, yes, I do love the band, but I love the band for some different reasons too, because I genuinely think, I'll give you an example. So Pearl Jam they treat their customers, their listeners, their fans better than any other band that I've ever experienced. And here's an example. So they have this, the very early on, they've always started this fan club, right?
Right.
But a very different type of fan club. You had to pay, your $10 a year, and you got a fan club number, and great. But the thing, even to this day, because they've been around 20 years, they just got back to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Even to this day, the first 30 rows or 50 rows of every concert they do, right? Because they still tour once, every couple of years, is reserved for fan club members only, and they've always done this.
Wow.
And the tickets are, face price. They're $15, $20. So a little random story. We traveling with some friends. We go to this, a show in I think it was New Orleans, and they had in that particular one they actually had seats, but it was all reserved. And we go up and we grab our tickets, and we're just kind of walking into this dark stadium. And we literally, the people just kept waving us on, like, nope, keep going through, keep going through, keep going through. We end up, and I kid you not, all the way in the center, front row, center, right, like the absolute best seat in the house, all because I was just a fan club member.
That is so cool. I like Pearl Jam, but now they're going to move to the tippy top.
All right.
I'm telling you that, and I can't believe that other bands don't, because I'm a member of a lot of different fan clubs, I love music like most people, but like no one else does that. No one else just takes the customer experience, and they have the big fight with Ticketmaster around
right.
Tickets getting just exorbitantly, like they actually care about their customer more than any band, and the fact that I also love the music is just the cherry on top for me. So that's
cool.
A committed customer.
Yeah. Plus
Customer for life.
Trivia is Eddie Vedder. Or my son, let's say, went to the same high school in Encinitas, California that Eddie Vedder attended. So,
oh, nice. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, years ago, he actually gave some money to the school when he was there to, I think, help build a library or something. But anyway, so he didn't forget his roots. All right. So, what's your favorite sales book?
This is a trick question, Mitch. I just want to tell you ahead of time. This is a trick question. You're lucky that you have somebody here to help.
Besides the obvious.
The obvious books, yes.
I for sure Influence, right, by Cialdini, and I know that you interviewed him, and I actually listened to that one because that by far, that's the book I tell any new salesperson or even experienced salesperson, just read this book, because for me, it was the first time. I mean, like us all, we read a lot of books, right? Like trying to learn as much as we can all the time. But it was the one book where it just clicked for me. And I said, oh, all of these things that I learned or I was doing as an individual sales rep that worked. I'm like, oh, now I can explain it. Now I know why it was working. I didn't really know why, I just know that it worked. But phenomenal, just a phenomenal book. So that's
all right. Influence by Robert Cialdini. Okay. Favorite non-sales book?
Non-sales book. I would say certainly if you're familiar with John Boyd, the fighter pilot who changed the art of war. So John Boyd, this book is also phenomenal. This is probably the only second book that I ever recommend, but you have to read this story. I'm sending this book to both of you because it's so incredible.
I'll probably have read it by the time you send it to me. What is it? Tell me.
It's John Boyd. So the story, this guy, he's a real person, and he was a fighter pilot, back in the 60s, but he was a brilliant mathematician, right? And he ended up he's the forefather for. He basically came up with, or the first person to come up with a formula to model military airplanes. Right, and before that, no one they were like, how can you build an equation that tells me how good a fighter plane is going to be? And so he was the first one to do that, and he ended up he's the kind of the father of the F-16, the A-10 Warthog, a couple of lots of other brilliant airplanes, and he also developed this concept called the OODA loop, which is OODA, so it stands for you observe, then you orient yourself, then you decide, then you action, right? And this whole concept that he developed is very much what I think is it's the beginning of your pivot or iteration, really, right? And so when I started to understand how he had kind of developed all this, in addition to all this great, the impacts that he's had on the world in many different ways, again, it started to click for me. Like, effectively, can we do more of these OODA loops in any business decision that we can make in the sales cycle? Can we do more OODA loops? Because if we can do more OODA loops based off of more decisions, more actions, more observing, more orienting, then that gives us an advantage in the sales cycle. And so I've implemented this. Make everyone on my team read it. It's a phenomenal story, and it really helps, again, this concept of iteration, and can you just do more, faster, learn, right?
Well, it also seems like it really applies to this topic of behavior change, right? Because if you're orienting yourself, you're basically creating awareness of your environment, right? And observe, orient, or is it orient, observe? I would order, but decide, act. Yeah, to me, it's like you could take a decision about. Yeah, I'm being very conscious about what I'm doing based on my orientation and observation. I'll change where I'm going.
Yes, exactly.
Mitch, is the title of the book, is it Boyd, the fighter pilot who changed the art of war? Is that the one?
That's the one. Yeah. It is
I can hardly wait.
I'd be really interested to get, and you have to be honest with me as far as
I will.
You guys rating, on kind of 0 to 10, what you really think about it. But for me, it really struck. Like he was very, he was out there. He was very against, not your typical military guy. And he worked in the Pentagon a lot, and everybody hated this guy, right? Because he was just so against the grain in everything that he did, and just a brilliant mathematician to start, which was just a great story.
Okay, well, we'll make sure we bring this up in our next books episode. Bridget, we'll discuss this book.
Oh, cool!
I'm going to read it. I feel like I should almost just get off this right now and start. This is great. I always love it when something comes really highly recommended. I'm super excited. Thank you, Mitch. You've really earned your keep.
Great.
Not that you were worried about it. Not that you were worried, but
since he's paying the bills,
you were asking, and not that it mattered what I think, but anyway.
Wait,
Andy may not feel the same way.
Well, Bridget, we all seek your approval, so that's important.
Yeah. I've really experienced that.
Am I allowed to ask like your two top books also?
Our books.
Yeah.
Are you talking about sales or non-sales?
Let's do non-sales.
Probably. Well, I love Shakespeare. I always recommend Shakespeare. People should be reading because you can learn so much about the humans. Or if there's a great book by a guy named Harold Bloom, who's this incredible scholar, who wrote a book called The Invention of the Human. Basically puts forth the theory that sort of people and our reactions and sort of the ways we look at the world and our feelings didn't really exist till Shakespeare described them. Huge influence on Western society. So, things like that. I love. Bridget.
Well, I'll tell you just a more recent one. I read all the time. So there's a whole bunch, like just classic Les Mis is like one of my all-time favorites, but a more recent, and partly it has to do with me working for an Israeli company. I loved Startup Nation, and it's about Israel. So I really loved that one as just a fun book to read. Okay, now let's go to the business book, aside from the obvious. Okay, aside from the obvious. Andy, what's yours aside from the obvious?
Oh, gosh, there have been so many.
So many that you've written, you just can't pick which one you like the best of yours.
Of mine, well, yes. Choose between the two of them. Yeah, that's a hard choice. I just read a really interesting book I really enjoyed, written by Marshall Goldsmith, who is perhaps the preeminent business coach in the world, and wrote a book called Triggers about how to behavior change and how to become the person you want to be. And I thought it was a fantastic book, sort of describing how to become aware of our environment, how to actually change our behavior. But it is written from the perspective of not changing just your habits, and sort of like Duhigg wrote in his book, which is great, The Power of Habit, but more about how do you change your behaviors relative to your interpersonal skills, which is so critical for sales. And it lays it out in such a way that I thought was quite brilliant, and gives a tool at the end, a very simple tool for people to use to to use on a daily basis to help them monitor their behavior change. And it's extremely well done.
Okay. Mine. Oh my God. I have so many, but my most recent, Andy, we've talked about it, is Winner's Dream by Bill McDermott, the CEO of SAP. It's a great story, especially for sales. It's a really, really great story of his journey from working in a deli kind of up to where he is now. And
great.
I listened to it on Audible, and he's the one who reads it. And so you get it in his voice with his passion about sales and the people and the customers and the profession. And it's super inspiring. My team at the company where I was previously, everybody read it on the team, and we talk about it in meetings. It's a great book.
Okay, so what's the title again?
Winner's Dream, Bill McDermott.
Okay,
gonna knock these out this weekend.
It's a great one. You can also let me know. You can also let me know,
absolutely,
Mitch, how this one resonated. It's great to listen to if you're an Audible junkie like I tend to be.
Well, Mitch, so in case you don't know, Bridget's out running every morning at 4:30 in the morning. Come
Or
rain,
5.
shine, snow, listening to her Audible books. So
I know other people get pumped up with music. I put a book on and I'm just over the top. I get lost.
that's good. That's good. So let's see, Mitch. Words of wisdom you live by. Have a quote or a saying?
Probably the one I probably recite to myself every morning is it goes like this. We come from a time where you were expected to make your own way. We didn't wait around and wait for people to do things for us. I don't know who wrote it, but it was given to me, and to me it's like, hey, you got to go make something happen.
Yeah. Well, your signature line on your emails is go, go, go.
That's right.
So that gives you an indication, a hint. So I was going to ask about hobby and interest, but I know that one of them is whiskey.
Is the whiskey, and whiskey is one of those funny ones. It's like I wouldn't even really call myself a whiskey person. I was fortunate enough to work early on with a bunch of Irish guys. Kind of got me into it, and I even to this day I don't drink a lot of whiskey, but it is one thing. If I do a lot of wagers with my team or with other salespeople or other folks about just certain situations, and it always ends up that I end up usually wagering whiskey bottles. So it just kind of become a thing.
And bottles of whiskey with whiskey in them.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. So
yeah, it's best if they have something in them.
Well, he said whiskey bottles. I didn't know. So okay.
I don't know. It's fair.
Yeah. We're just trying to be precise for the audience.
Hey, he's detail oriented.
That's right.
I get it.
All right. So last question for you, Mitch, is what aspect of yourself are you focused on improving right now?
Oh, at the moment, where we are as a company, I'm leading most of the sales efforts. So every day, there's 2 skills I'm trying to continue to hone. Every time we pitch and talk to a customer, it's how can I qualify faster and better? What questions do I use? And then closing. So for me, those, I don't think you can ever master those, but I just continually try and work with my team to try new things and approaches to see how we can continually reduce the amount of time that the customer goes, yep, I'm comfortable, I'm at product yes, and then shifting gears, how can we accelerate the commercial yes thread, which to me are kind of like 2 principles that I've built my sales process around.
Got it. Okay, so you said you had questions for us.
I do.
We've got time for one, maybe 2.
Okay, I will pick this because this one I argue with. I discuss with people quite often. It's the July lull, right? The July-December lull. And do you subscribe to it? Do you think it's real?
We had an episode about this not that long ago.
Oh, really? Oh,
we talked about.
Go listen to that. Damn it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're done. No, but we did talk about do you need to have a summer sales strategy, basically? Mm-hmm. And Bridget, what'd you say?
I think you have to have a strategy, but you just have to plan for it. I don't think it's a reason necessarily I actually don't remember what I said, but I just think you gotta be prepared for it. So if you think you're going to have a lull in July, I'd have a plan to make it up in August and September. That's how I think about it. What did I say? I wonder.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and
I'll go back and listen.
look at the transcript,
because I may have changed my mind from what I said then to what I say now.
We're always learning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I spent years selling in Europe or going to Europe and selling, let's say, and yeah, the theory was always, well, August, everybody's cled down. Yeah, you're never getting anything done in August. And actually, I found out you sort of have to just sort of try to pierce the veil, because there's oftentimes there's a myth behind that. And actually did a lot of business in August in Europe because not everybody was on vacation. Maybe in France they were, but typically there were countries where people are still working, and so. Could you get some seasonal lulls? Everybody talks about, we can't get that done in August because Wall Street's on vacation. Because I sold to the financial industry for a long time. Yeah, sort of as Bridget said, if you knew that was the case, then you had the orders lined up in July and they gave you the orders in September.
Right.
And you just the reality is that more people are going to be gone. I mean, it just is. So does it affect the business and leads coming in? Yeah, it absolutely does. Is it a reason to shut things down or make a big deal about it? No, but you just have to know the reality is they do take vacations in those times. Okay, so how are we gonna mitigate? How are we gonna mitigate that issue and make that less of an issue?
Or just focus on your customers in the Southern Hemisphere, and they're not on vacation.
Or that.
Yeah, I'd do that. I'd go to Australia in our summer. They're there. They're all celebrating.
I guess I've always, even if I go back to my own individual contributor sales career, and then going into teams, I have always kind of found that December and July actually are biggest months, and I was trying to figure this out a while back, but I think my hypothesis is that everyone's on vacation, but the right people are on vacation. So, I mean, really, VPs, now you're not going to start a sales cycle in July and close it, no. But if you have stuff that's coming in June, you have it teed up correctly, and you're getting into the closing for July, the VPs and director levels, the guys that can sign, they might be on holidays, but they're certainly still working. Right. And they certainly, especially if this is, expectations have been set around signatures and getting things signed. Last December was our biggest month for last year, and I think July is lining up for us to be the biggest month so far. So I don't know. I think it's that the right people are gone. It gives the VPs, the directors, actually some time away from being locked in meetings all day.
There you go. Yeah, you get a chance to sort of more undivided attention.
And salespeople are taking their time off. That's the other thing. I love it when salespeople are the competitor just going, I'm on the quarter, so I'm waiting until I'll get it going in August to get ready for September. It's great. That gives us the competitive advantage
exactly. All right. Unfortunately, we got to call it a day. But Mitch, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to spend this time with you.
Thank you both. And I have one last thing to leave you and your listeners.
Yes.
There are 11 and a half business. Well, for you guys, there's only 11 and a half business days left in the month. So go.
Go. I love it.
There we go. All right. Mitch, thank you very much. Bridget, as always.
Great. As always, great to talk with you, Mitch, also.
Absolutely.
And friends, thank you for joining us today on this episode of Frontline Fridays. Make sure you come back and join us again next Friday. And in between time, there's lots of good episodes of Accelerate to listen to. So thank you very much. Bridget, we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Take care.